Three calories. What kind of drink has 3 calories? Oh, hi. Didn't see you there. Welcome to another fantasy show. I am Chuck Bass. I will be tonight's escort. We are live on the Pepsi stage on the Jardiant studio at the Nugenics desk, brought to you by Shoney's. As always, ladies and gentlemen, football is back. We took 3 weeks off to focus on family, send some work emails, get those moles checked out, things we all do in the off season. But the time is done. We are back. It's time to remember what was and unburden ourselves from what can be. So let's talk about what else we got here. The couple weeks that we have been back, a nice little combine. We really needed it. And the reason we really needed it is because it turns out that this free agency class might end up being one of the all-time worst. It might be the 08 Browns or the 2007 or the 2017 Browns, the 08 Lions when it comes to free agency periods. Or everything I'm about to personally say tonight might go down in the record books as being the worst take of all time. But you know what? When that's the case, you bring in a pro, you bring in an expert, you bring a hot take master. You all are going to know him as an incredibly veteran, high-stakes, redraft, dynasty, best ball player. I'm going to know him as a man that I thought was a stylish young black man until I saw him on a stream for the first time because of his Jordan Addison profile picture. Please welcome to the stage, Mr. Dan Williamson. How we doing, bud?
Hey, how you doing, Chuck? Thanks for having me on. This is going to be a fun show. I'm excited.
I'm very excited as well. We're happy to be on with you. I've been looking forward to having you on for a long time. We are bouncing really heavily into free agency. Things are rolling, but where are you kind of at mentally as we kind of get ready for this 2025 season? We've still got a lot of hurdles to climb. A lot of news is coming in. Walk us through kind of what's the Dan Williamson mindset for right now?
Man, the Dan Williamson mindset is just draft your way through the damn thing.
That's right.
That's all it is. I mean, we'll draft our way through it in best balls. We'll trade our way through it in dynasty. We'll start thinking about the redraft. Not into those streets yet, but they'll be coming soon. So
that's right.
The more you draft, the more you trade. Hey, the more in touch you are when the big money stuff starts flying. So
of course. So that begs the question: how many drafts do you think you've participated in already versus how many you've let your family know that you've done?
Let's see. Is this show going out anywhere other than to you and me?
I believe this one in particular, it'll be shown at a few YMCAs and I believe the Delta Sky Club Lounge in the Cincinnati airport. I think that's where we're contracted for right now.
Okay, perfect. None of my family is around there, so yeah, I've got dozens of drafts in on Underdog, and I've got I don't know, probably 15, 20 in on FFPC that are either completed or going right now.
Excellent. Are you feeling pretty? Are you feeling like you have a pretty good grip on where this is all going to go?
You never really have a great grip on it until after the NFL draft.
Sure.
All you can do is just make your best guesses and hope they turn out right. I mean, if you don't have some spectacularly bad results, you're never going to have any spectacularly good results. So
that's absolutely right. I have used that method in my personal life, in my professional life, in my draft life, in my social media life. And it's gotten me to have this podcast with you right now. So I would say things are going pretty good. You did mention drafting. That's kind of, where the mindset is right now. As anybody who's tuning into the show right now can see in the bottom corner, we've got the nice little Fast Draft app up there. Don't forget to use that promo code CBASS for a $25 deposit match. I had a ton of drafts today. The turbo mode has been treating me really well. But you know what? I can only say so much. Why don't we get the Podfather in here to kind of tell us about a little of the Fast Draft action?
Oh, I see all this mock draft information out there. Oh, this mock, that mock. Hey, what about a real actual fantasy game? The Flex 4 game on Fast Draft, draftfaster.com, is open. You draft 6 running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. The top 4 enter your lineup every week. It's that easy. It's that simple. Drafts take 5 minutes. There's a $50,000 prize pool. It's $15,000 to first. It's just a $5 entry. And the best part, no rake. No rake whatsoever on Fast Draft, the first 2025 Best Ball contest to open in the world, is ready for you to draft up to 150 teams. Draftfaster.com, draftfaster.com. Start playing Best Ball for real.
Start playing best ball for real. The only contest that you can currently personally take money out of my pocket. So I encourage anybody and everybody to go on over there. Variety of options from defense to rookies to the flex 4, and there's plenty more coming. So ton of fun out there. And I want to make sure I shout out from last week's show. I played several of the wrong clips for the promo code. So let's make sure we get this one right for once.
Sir, please. Oh, believe me, I would never do anything to offend a man of your size.
Kick his ass, Seabass!
Promo code Seabass. So I think we're doing all right there. Okay, Dan, wasted enough of your time with the chicanery that I always have going on around here. Let's get to the main event. Now, tonight's segment, I wanted to skew negative. It was important to me that we skewed negative. So that way, as we get to draft time, we can delude ourselves in thinking that these teams are actually doing the right thing. So our homework was coming up with 3 players each. Kind of a, what were you thinking? What were these teams thinking? Does anybody know what they're doing? So I'll ask you before we go in here, how did you approach this? Did you have 3 that just came right to you? Did you have any personally that you were just dying to talk about? Or was it sort of, as you did some of the research, you started to see where these terrible chips are going to terribly fall?
No, I think the first 2 they came right to me. The third one I had to think about a little bit. Yeah, it was, when you see something and you just know it's going to smell bad, you don't need to go up and sniff it. It's it's already there.
That is, I might have to get that on a koozie, and I'll put it in on the prison setup that I have behind me right now. That might only be lasting for another week or 2. Yeah, I think that's really telling to this class, right? Is that so many of these, and I say class referring to the pre-agency crop, so many of them just jumped off the page in their, like you said, initial stink, and then looking a little bit deeper in the details and finding some real solid stinks. So I'm excited to kick things off tonight. If everyone out there watching the show right now, we would love a like. We would love a subscribe. This Player Profiler Now channel is really making some big moves. We're really pumping out a lot of great content. We'd love to have you all there for each and every second of it. So go ahead and smash those bad boys if you get the chance. It would mean a lot to me. It would mean a lot to my 2025 tax return. So Dan, the man of the hour, the guest of the hour, I'm going to let you serve first here. Why don't you tell the people about your very first player on this list?
All right, Chuck, let's start with Daniel Jones. Because I mean, when you've got one inaccurate quarterback who just kind of runs around like a chicken with his head cut off, why not have 2? And why not pay him more money, right?
Of course.
It's like, okay, yeah, he does have a playing style that's very similar to Richardson, but is that really what we want here? You've figured out how to quite possibly fail twice in the same way in the same season. So I don't know what we're doing.
I don't know what we're doing either, and I love that you picked this one because I think it's, of all the ones that we have on this list, other than maybe one more, it's the one that I saw a lot of people really try to squint and see the plan here and really try to talk themselves into, okay, I like this. I can see the vision. I can see the, I don't want to, maybe it's more floor than upside. However, I would love to see how much stock these people have invested in Anthony Richardson and how much he's burned them. And if there's any correlation there that they just want to have a fresh face come in here and take over. I think you said it perfectly. Is 2 Anthony Richardsons the answer to this Colts vision? And I'm not sure if that's the case.
I mean, this is just laziness on the part of the coaching staff. They're like, you know what? If he fails, we don't really want to have to change the offense. We'd rather just, be able to throw somebody in there who can fail the same way instead of, actually coming up with an offense that will work with a quarterback that will actually work. So,
Sure.
I think they were hoping that, Daniel Jones, just touched the helm of Kevin O'Connell's robe and, somehow miraculously gained quarterback experience and smarts and intelligence while sitting on the sideline. I don't really know how that works, but good luck with it.
Good luck with it, indeed. I would have to ask you, because I already have this answer in my head. I would have thought that the team that wanted to sign Daniel Jones was maybe a team that saw 2022 and said, okay, maybe if something happens to our starter or we don't have a qualified starter, we can milk we can tap into the play that was done there. Are the Colts even in the top 25 of offensive equity bought in from us as fans, us as watching all these things, to believe that they're even capable of coercing that play out of Daniel Jones if it's in there still?
I mean, for me, I don't think so. They've had a hard time coercing it out of Richardson. So.
It's been really, really, really painful, and I feel for everybody out there. I think when I saw this clip, or when I saw this, I had one clip in mind, and it was basically this.
Look.
That's just how I feel about this upcoming 2025 season for the Colts. So God bless Jonathan Taylor if he has to, and Michael Pittman and Josh Downs if they have to sit through another one of these. Does this impact? I would have a feeling it doesn't, because neither one of us like the signing. Does this impact how you're going to feel about any of these players on this Colts offense going into the year?
Yeah, my hope was that the Colts talked about, hey, we gotta have like an adult playing quarterback. And I still don't think that they really do, and I'm really concerned about the volume for the pass catchers, basically. Michael Pittman and Josh Downs and any reasonable offense would probably be pretty good players, starve them of targets, and it's tough to get anywhere with them.
Tough to get anywhere with them, indeed. You hate to see an offense that has maybe another gear or two that we've only seen for very, very brief instances in time. Slashy's in the house. Slashy was excited for this show. He reached out to me when he found out you were coming on and said some very inappropriate things, but I assure you they were all complimentary and all very flattering. So very happy to have him on here. His A1C is being lowered as we speak. So let's get off of this topic and let's get on to one. I'll go up next here. And this is one that, I wanted this to be a hot take, but I think as I did a little bit more research into this, I found more people not quite on the same page as this is meant to be. And for me, that's going to be Sam Darnold, the haunted house tour guide, 3 years, $100 million, $55 million guaranteed. Let's come out of the gate swinging with this. This was the move of the weekend from a generating press standpoint. Geno Smith gets traded at peak buzz hours for everybody on, I don't know if it was Sunday or Saturday, but he was a lot of people's top free agent in this class, not necessarily from a skill or talent standpoint, but more of a needle mover, a game changer for a team. It's going to set the direction for where they're going to go for the next 2 or 3 years. And there were a lot of options on the table. For Sam, I love it, right? He gets a nice he gets literally the exact Baker Mayfield contract, only adjusted for a little bit of inflation. He certainly played well enough last year to earn the chance to be a starter for his third team. All that being said, I hate it for Seattle. If you look at all of Seattle's other moves in a vacuum, I think it makes sense from a rebuilding standpoint. You trade Geno, trade DK, you move on from Lockett, you move on from Fant. You've got a nice young defense with a lot of talent. I can kind of see the vision there. Where you're going to have to give me 8 or 9 beers is convincing me that this Sam Darnold thing is going to work out in Seattle specifically. I wasn't quite sure if he was going to be able to put up close to the same numbers that he put up last year on another team, considering he just played with, he has got Kevin O'Connell on the side, a really good offensive line up front, and 2 of the best weapons in the league together with Jefferson and Addison. I would love your insight here on if you think there's even a chance that Darnold can be 75% of what he was in Minnesota with this Seattle team.
Yeah, Seattle, they got put in kind of a bad spot because they tried to write Geno a contract, and he ain't right back, I guess.
He's ending it like he started it. They wrote him off, and he didn't write back. That's a good thought.
Yeah, so the main problem Darnold is going to have is that offensive line looks an awful lot like the offensive line in Minnesota that made him look really bad against some teams like the Rams. You would think Seattle might want to do well against the Rams, but who knows what their plan is. They got to fix that offensive line, or Darnold is probably not going to look real great there.
Correct.
Pulling away some of his weapons already to start with. Metcalf and Lockett going elsewhere. That's not ideal. But then they just haven't. They've mostly sat on their hands as far as free agency goes for the offensive line. They do have some draft picks, so hopefully they get it done there. But Seattle kind of has a history of ignoring that offensive line and just telling the quarterback, deal with it.
Yep, they have. They've done an awful lot to not do an awful lot to put their quarterback in a position to succeed. They bring in Ryan Grubb. They try to do some fun stuff, and Gino had some interesting stats that you can point to, specifically, pure drop back stats. Right, he's very high up there in standing in the pocket and delivering. They're not using him much on play action. They're not using a lot of motion or anything like that. So when you look at what I call the love-making stats, EPA, success rate, any of those fun nerd stats, he's much closer to Sam Darnold last year than the volume stats would indicate, right? So you're talking about two quarterbacks in what I believe were wildly different positions. Actually, when you strip away all the fat, actually having much closer contributions to the passing attack. So I think this will turn out to be closer to Nick Foles in Jacksonville or Daniel Jones's second contract with the Giants than I do a Baker Mayfield. Now, do you think that this is going to be a disaster, or do you are you just holding your breath?
I mean, I hope it's not. I think Darnold is a pretty likable guy. I'd like to see him succeed. I think in the right environments, as we saw this past year, he definitely can. But, I do think he's the type of player who there are probably only a few offenses and systems that he can really excel in.
Sure.
So hopefully this one works.
Yeah, I think so. Do you think that if they were to make no significant additions from a skill position standpoint, maybe they bolstered the line in some meaningful way in the draft? They do have 8 picks and 4 in the top 106. Is this somebody you'll be targeting in drafts in any QB2, QB3 type situations?
I mean, I'll take a little bit, but it's hard to take him right now in in any pre-draft best ball or any kind of action like that, just because there's so much uncertainty, what's going on with the offensive line, what kind of skill players are they going to add, because right now it's just, JSN, the running backs, and a whole lot of hope.
A whole lot of hope. And God bless, it feels like that's been the case in Seattle in the last little bit now. And also, he's in the zeitgeist going into last season. I don't know how much Sam Darnold buzz, if any, there was, even all the way up until, the season started. Now he's on everybody's radar, whether it's positive or negative. So it's a name that's going to generate some sort of reaction in drafts. So God bless Seattle. Still trying to figure things out. Would have loved to maybe see them capitalize a little bit more. You can kind of see the end of the road with this current Rams team. 49ers are in I don't want to say a tailspin, but they're certainly in a tumbler right now. Might be time for them to strike while the iron's hot. Who knows? All right. Let's get on to some number 2 here for us. So just to recap, we've gone through Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold. The quarterbacks have been hammered. Tell us about your second pick.
Yeah, so I don't really think that free agency has truly begun, until the Patriots have signed a wide receiver that came out of nowhere last year and did just kind of okay, and probably will never be heard of again. This is Kendrick Bourne. This is, every Patriots wide receiver signing for the past 10 years. Sure.
So all of them is what we're going with.
Right. Yeah, pretty much.
I like that. I like that a whole lot, especially when a stereotype becomes reality, right? It seems that, I don't know if you win 6 Super Bowls, if there's some joke that you have to commit to with the league, if Roger Goodell has some sort of time to pay the piper situation going on. But they certainly are on brand all the time. What are they doing here? Let's, all jokes aside, all hilarity aside, what is the thought process behind this?
I don't know. I mean, I think, Mac Hollins does have a skill set that they should be able to use. Yes, I'm angering Andrew Cooper, so we don't want to do that. I mean, that guy's got friends in high places, so we got to be careful here.
He's got high friends in certain
or
places.
High friends in some places. I don't know.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, but Hollins is for the money, it was 2 years, $8.4 million. I mean, you really can't go wrong with that. So I don't mind it as a depth piece, but you're just hoping that this Patriots might make a little bit more of a splash somewhere. and we haven't seen that yet. It's still early. There are still, plenty of wide receivers out there. So, things are going to happen. But, yeah, Hollins was just like, really? You started with that? This is where you're going to, that just to me was, leaning into the bit a little bit too much.
Yeah, and it really is the maximum version of that bit, because it's not only a guy that hasn't really meaningfully contributed anywhere at any given point of time, but it's a guy who's really currently most famous for just being a cartoonishly over-the-top character for a team. So I do know locker rooms love that. I know they're trying to, embrace the locker room culture there now that they've moved on from Gerard Mayo, and they do have, when you look at their picks compared to their roster, it does make sense for them to go talented wide receiver at 4, if Tet's there, or if Hunter's there for some reason he falls, and then maybe take a nice running back at 38, or vice versa. Genty is not a spot you hear a lot for the Patriots at 4, and it's certainly not a Patriots move. But God, that would be a lot of fun to see them do that, and then maybe take an Ibuka or somebody like that with their next round. They are in a position to make everybody forget we ever had this conversation. However, they have no trust in me to be able to pull that off. The fact that you let off with this, you let off with how weird they are, kind of speaks to this post-Belichick. Ever since Cam Newton slid down the bench, that's been very indicative of this franchise since then. So it's been tricky to watch. I take it that Mac Hollins will not be the last pick in many of your teams.
No, not necessarily. I mean, that last pick, I'm kind of hoping for some upside. He's a great, real NFL football player. Does a lot of things for his team.
Dirty work.
That need to be done so that other players can shine. So,
sure.
We'll give him credit for that. We'll give the Patriots credit for, getting themselves a nose to the grindstone guy who, as you say, is, he's a little bit of a head case too, which is always fun. I mean, we like entertaining players, and he's definitely an entertaining player. So,
yep, that is what we need. We need all the entertainment in the world. Do you like any of we've got a couple big name free agents still left. If I were to rail off a few of these names, are there any that get your needle going? Cooper Kupp, Amari Cooper, Diggs, Keenan Allen, Deontay Johnson, Tyler Lockett's out there floating around. Is there anybody that you would say,
I would go with Diggs and Keenan Allen. I don't think either one of them's dust yet. I mean, with Diggs, with the injury, that is a concern. But the guy is he's a maniac. I think he's going to come back. He's going to, be just fine.
Sure.
He's not going to be like he was when he was in his, 26, 27, 28 years old. But I still think he's got gas left in the tank. Keenan Allen, he's kind of starting to turn into, Larry Fitzgerald a little bit, where he's almost more like a jumbo slot tight end than, actual wide receiver. But he finds a way to find the open spot in the zone and get himself, some receptions.
That's right. He's like that basketball player who just knows how to get to his spot on the court, no matter how little tread is left on their tires. Joe Carlton wouldn't mind a little K. This fat bitch said draft night they'll trade for a wide receiver. The thing that bothers me about all this is that they did open up the pocketbooks pretty sizably on the defensive side of the ball, and I do like that. I think Drake May is such a talented player, and I think he's going to be such a fun player in this league for a long time. I guess maybe that's just the selfishness in me, hoping that they would have shined a little bit of light on that. But if they're building something that I'm not aware of, the draft is certainly the place to do it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited for Drake May. I think he's got a great future. So let's get him some little bit of protection, a little bit of weapons, and see what happens.
A little bit of protection, a little bit of weapons. That might be my next fantasy team name in some way, shape, or form, because I like that a lot. All right, let's get to we've got a couple more fun ones here. I'm going to throw to a little ad break here because I'm a professional and this is a professional show.
Hey, what if I told you there was a dynasty app where you could get player lifetime values, evaluate trades, including draft picks out to 2028, compare the advanced metrics of two players, look up the sentiment, buy, sell, hold on players? Well, there is a mobile app that has all of that and more called the Dynasty Dominator, and it's $5 in the App Store on Google Play. This is my gift to you, the most affordable Dynasty League domination app available today. And if you already have it, The 2025 class is ready to download. Let's go.
Let's go. Feels good. I have been blessed with the power to advertise and kick to other people, and I will do them no wrong. I will give them what I got. Okay, great pick there. Matt Collins, love that. Now I can't stop thinking about the idea of Matt Collins and Stephon Diggs on the same team together and who would choke out who if the situation got heated enough. It's just the kind of things we got to think about in March. So, all right, coming up next for my pick was, I thought, the most on-brand signing of the weekend. You talked about Matt Collins, which actually this is right up there with them for me. And this is going to be Juwan Johnson, a.k.a. Mr. Milchick from Severance, getting 3 years, $30 million, $21 million guaranteed. I think this is the first one that actually made me laugh out loud. No team in my lifetime has done more to shoot themselves in the foot from a salary cap general managing standpoint than the New Orleans Saints. They are 5 months in 2009 and a nice 2017 draft class away from being one of the most poorly run franchises, not just in sports, but maybe in the history of Western civilization. So just absolutely brutal. And I like him as a player. It's not really an indictment on him. He's a little bit younger than people think. He's been with the team for 5 years. So there's some organizational familiarity with him. I just think it's funny that a staff that basically had him what felt like at times third in the pecking order, even though he was second on the team in targets last year, behind Taysom Hill, behind Foster Moore. I know it's a new crop of guys coming in to run the show. Perhaps Kellen Moore seeing something in him that maybe he wants him to be some sort of veteran, catalyst for, or at least a stable presence of mind for an offense that has had guys in and out of the picture regularly, right? Injuries with Olave, Rashid Shaheed, young and injured, inconsistency in the running back group, just a lot going on. But yesterday, the Saints got underneath the cap for 2025 and 2026 for the first time in several years. It did not even last 2 hours. Already back under it with the signings of Reed and Young and Johnson, which don't really feel like meaningful contributions to a team that is rudderless and has no direction. If this was a competitive team that had been in the division title hunt, in a good division, that is, for a few years, and they were fighting to stay alive, and they saw a window here, that might make sense. They have $122 million dead cap committed to 2027, and somehow $38 million in dead cap already committed to 2028. I don't even know how that's possible. And I had 3 CPAs try to explain it to me. Like I said, if this roster was competitive, maybe after a few Buffalo Traces, I could see the vision. But Derek Carr and his $78 million in dead cap this year and his pure cap of $69 million last year are telling me otherwise. Dan, what's going on with the Saints? What's going on with Juwan Johnson? What are we doing down here in the Big Easy?
Hey, you got to love Mickey Loomis. I mean, he's basically your average 11-year-old kid giving his parents a credit card and set loose in a mall. And this is how he lives his life. So, who am I to argue? The Saints try to prove that the salary cap is not real, yet somehow hilariously end up proving it's more real than you could possibly know every year. So
they're the reason that there are rules in society. Are teams like this? I don't know if he's spending too much time at the Harrah's or what it is, but you made a good point. The kid in the mall with his parents' credit card, and he knows it. And that's the worst kind of kid out there, sadly. So absolutely brutal stuff. I don't get it. And it doesn't sound like you do either.
No, definitely not. I mean, I like Juwan Johnson, but I mean, they spent way too much time ignoring him last year. And then they're like, oh yeah, we're going to give you 3 for 30. And, so hopefully we can ignore you and pay you well.
It is certainly the bad relationship of bad relationships. The way that the Saints kind of treats their players financially, they love bomb their players, right? I'm going to buy you all these gifts. I'm going to get you all these nice flashy things, nice house, nice car. You're going to be able to take care of your family. And then when it actually comes to building what's important in a relationship, love and trust and responsibility, they're out in the middle of the Gulf of America doing their own thing.
Gosh, Chuck, that was deep.
Yeah.
I'm starting to rethink some of my own choices here.
I'm struck. And what's funny is that the Saints are a team that I find much passion and enjoyment in tanking. But as a person who likes to be invested in talent and enjoying a good product on the field, it's been hard to see what these last few years have been like. So Juwan Johnson, like you said, seems like a decent player. Seems like somebody who could be a part of a meaningful offense. Maybe he's had some conversations with Kellen Moore and kind of, reestablishing a new vision there, because I don't know what they're going to do otherwise. So maybe he is going to be a focal point in some way, shape, or form.
It would be nice because I think he's got the talent to, make it pay off for him a little bit. So I've always been a Juwan Johnson fan, so I'm glad he got the bag there, and I would really like to see him get used.
Yes, it would be nice because we've gone back and forth about every 6 months. I feel like we're either in the greatest age of tight ends or we're in the worst, depending on how they treat you once the season rolls along. And this is somebody that had, I'm not going to say hype going into last year, but there certainly was, especially with Derek Carr. Maybe it was 2023 that the hype was coming in, but you could, I keep using this metaphor of having a few Buffalo Traces or squinting and seeing the vision. I could have seen it with them. It didn't really, I didn't see any other. I kind of felt like maybe he could have been a Darren Waller light, less athletic, but still as dominant from a high value touches scenario. So I don't know if this is a Derek Carr thing. I don't know if it was a Clint Kubiak thing. Seems like there's a lot of characters in the people that we're talking about tonight that have had a history of what are we doing here, guys? And that's why tonight's the theme. That's why it's the theme of tonight's show. Yeah. All right. And Matthew Montgomery, who was the first guest on the offseason, he said 3 GOATs in the frame. And he's absolutely right. I assume that he's referring to you, Roger Goodell above me, and my dog Groot, who's over here to the right. So the 3 GOATs, absolutely, we'll keep that running. Okay. So let's get back on track here. We are crushing it so far, Dan. You are bringing the heat, and you've got a really funny one for your next one. Not to tip the cap too much, but it's somebody that it's almost hilarious that not only is he on the radar, but it makes so much sense that he's on this segment that we're doing. So why don't you tell the people about your last, what were they thinking?
Yeah, so I've got Diami Brown here, who somehow managed to get a 1-year, $10 million contract for finally waking up after 3 3/4 years as a Washington Redskin, doing almost nothing at all. And, like the last 3 or 4 games of the regular season, a couple playoff games, actually contributing a little bit. So the Jags saw that, and they were like, ooh, we've got to have this guy. Never mind about Gabe Davis, who we paid way too much to last year, and we can't get rid of this year because we paid way too much to him last year. So we're going to have Diami Brown, who pretty much does the exact same thing, and maybe not even quite as well as Gabe, but now we got 2 guys who can run down the field and do wind sprints.
The 5th-year breakout. It's a rare but underappreciated talent that some players certainly have. I would love to know, you brought up, I think, probably the least talked about person since the beginning of last season. How many people in America do you think are currently aware that Gabe Davis is still a Jacksonville Jaguar, or maybe ever even was one?
I don't know. I'm sure that it's about as many people who have actively tried to forget that information. So,
so yes, it's there's healing and then there's just lobotomizing. That makes a lot of sense. This is definitely one of those funny contracts too, when you see what other players are getting, especially in the last couple of days, and not even at the same position. But if you were to look at, running back contracts or tight end contracts or some other, players that I thought would have been, considered more established or at least more valued by other teams. And then Diami Brown and Tutu Atwell are putting together $20 million between the two of them this year. It's a really interesting, I don't know if this is going to end up meaning anything because they have a very high draft pick in, I think they could go skill position if they wanted in 2 consecutive rounds and just, this is just a fluff contract. Or like you said, did they see something and say that this is the guy for us? And the Jacksonville Jaguars, like a lot of teams on this list for me, are not a team that I think has a lot of current credibility, new coaching staff, all that stuff. I get it. New GM, sure. But some franchises are just tainted, and I'm curious if this will be one of them. Yeah,
I've got a lot of hope for Liam Cohen, but I think, he's got his work cut out for him this year. We'll say that. Hopefully he can rehabilitate Trevor Lawrence, who's a good quarterback, I think, trapped on a bad franchise. I don't think he's a great quarterback. He's not what we were hoping he would be, but I still think he's a quality NFL starter, and so hopefully they can really find a way to get him to show that in ways that he hasn't done since, other than just in fits and starts over the past few years.
I agree. I share your optimism on that front, and it's nice to know that they have what I believe is a game record in Brian Thomas Jr. Brenton Strange coming on semi hot. He didn't put up enough last year to be a big target on a lot of people's radar, but I think he'll be a sleeper as we approach the summer. ETN, Bigsby, that's a little bit of whatever, but they have a chance here if it clicks to be a team that we had hoped they could be. So the wheels aren't falling off yet. There's some more dominoes to fall, but I do say that when I saw them signing him, I do know what some Jacksonville fans' reactions were.
Whoa.
All right. Sorry. Not to speak for the entire Jacksonville Jaguars fan base, but at least that's how I would have reacted if I were you guys. Now, on to the last one. We have done a quarterback. We've done two quarterbacks. We have done a wide receiver. We have done a tight end, two tight ends, or two wide receivers, that is. Let's end with I'm going to call this one my MacGuffin pick because it's not really about him, although it is about him. This is tackle Jalen Moore, signed by the Kansas City Chiefs. A player that I had to Google because I wasn't sure if this was somebody who I was supposed to know or if I was a fraud. Former 49ers tackle gets 2 years, $30 million with $21 million guaranteed. Now this one feels dirty because I'm hating on a guy for finally getting what is probably his big break, big payday. So this is not about Jalen Moore or all of his fans out there. It has to do with who he is and how he got the money, which is he was the backup to Trent Williams in San Francisco. And Trent Williams was the one player to where almost every season at some point of time, I've seen the graphic of how good the 49ers are without him and how good they are or how bad they are without him. So to be his backup and to be the guy who's always mentioned in that same breath, 49ers MVP, Trent Williams, potential league MVP, Trent Williams. I just feel like that doesn't inspire a lot of confidence for me personally. And then you combine that with the team that he's going to that was not only just nationally embarrassed for having a pretty bad offensive line in that Super Bowl against an Eagles front that is strong but not legendary. They just lost Joe Thuney. They let him walk. Now he is older. He is chasing a payday, but they're not exactly, in my opinion, in a great spot to start making moves like this. I don't know how much trust the coaching staff currently has from their ability to develop or at least coach up talent based on some of the guys that we've seen on the offensive side of the ball. All pro center, back-to-back years, walks away, anchor the offensive line. What is this going to end up being? And from a fantasy perspective, is this going to be the same disappointing, but somehow leads the league in EPA and success rate offense that we saw last year without Rashee Rice? I don't feel a ton of confidence in the bring back Hollywood Brown. We're going to do some more Isaiah Pacheco. I know the draft is coming up, and they've got Xavier Worthy, of course, trying to take the top off, but he just got arrested for choking out a family member. Dan, this is a team it's got me feeling a certain kind of way, and it's not good. Where are you on any of this?
Well, I have seen a sneak peek of the Chiefs media guide, and it's going to feature Jalen Moore, and it's going to say he's no Trent Williams right across the top.
Smart, savvy. That's
Right.
savvy media presence in Kansas City, always on top of things.
Exactly. Now, and almost the best part was the fact that they signed him like 2 minutes after the free agency.
Yeah, he was one of the first.
opened.
He was one of the first ones.
He was like, it's so fast that they're kind of bracing for possibly losing a draft pick in Kansas City because of the fact that they're like, how did this deal get done in like 90 seconds? So,
Yep.
and it took you probably 70 seconds just to file the paperwork.
This one is it's stinky for the reasons that a contract is like this is not supposed to be stinky, and that's it's not what the 3 Super Bowls in the last 6 years team is supposed to be. They are famous for all the wrong reasons right now.
Yeah, it does seem that way, but maybe they're leaning into the narrative that everybody wants to have for them. They're kind of the new evil empire. So, I guess lean into it.
That's right. They're leaning into it. Michael Jackson levels of lean at this point. So I would have to ask you. So I have that bad taste in my mouth that I mentioned in that little soliloquy that I just put on. Do you see a path for them to become at least a step towards that explosive offense that we saw in 2022, maybe not 2020 or 2019, other than just relying on Mahomes' magic and Rashee Rice being healthy?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is just the way that defenses are playing now. It's a lot harder to be explosive like that. So, I don't know that the go-go days are coming back completely, but I think they've got their skill players, at least, their receiving weapons, a little bit more aligned with what they want to do, assuming Rashee Rice comes back healthy, assuming he's not suspended too long, assuming that Xavier Worthy doesn't get suspended too long. So if things work out as they designed, they've got the skill players to do what they want to do. My question is, can the offensive line hold up? I mean, we just saw the Eagles dismantle them in the Super Bowl, and that's got to be a wake-up call. And also, every team in the NFL is going to be taking a look at that, and they don't maybe have the same players as the Eagles, so they can't pull it off exactly like the Eagles did, but they see what sorts of things the Eagles were doing, and will be looking to replicate that. So I think it's critical that they get better on the offensive line.
Has to be. And so maybe this is more of a bolstering potential depth they'll be adding at some point, or something along those lines, because they've got some. They've figured this out before. Tampa did the same thing, right? Tampa beat the brakes off of them in the Super Bowl and completely embarrassed them in a very similar Eagles fashion. And then, they took 1 year to rebound, and then they won consecutive Super Bowls. So you make a good point that maybe this is a path that they have walked down before. So I like a little of optimism there. Maybe I just needed to get that off of my chest and feel a little bit better. Excellent. All right. So do you have any? I do have one. We have some late minute-ish breaking news. I do kind of want to get your reaction to this. Rico Dowdle signing with the Panthers. 1 year. Does this do anything for you? Does this impact Chuba Hubbard for you in any meaningful way? Is this indicative of some future with Jonathan Brooks? How does this guy who had a nice year for the Cowboys last year fit into your world?
I mean, honestly, the Dowdle signing is, I think, a little bit of a relief to me, just because I was worried that Chuba would have some kind of competition coming in through the draft, because running back is low key a need. They don't know how Jonathan Brooks is going to come back.
Sure.
And the fact that they signed Dowdle and just signed him to a 1 year contract says that, hey, they're still thinking, they like Brooks. They're hoping he comes back. So this is kind of a, hey, let's get through this year and then see where we're at type of contract is how it looks to me right now. So, and I think, as far as, Dowdle can do a lot of things. I think he's a better player than any of us gave him credit for at the beginning of last year. He was sort of like, Zeke sucks, so I guess we'll draft Dowdle. And that's how a lot of fantasy players kind of fell into drafting Dowdle, and it turned out that he was actually not half bad. So I do think that he's going to make a nice pairing with Chuba Hubbard. In a way, it might make life a little bit easier for Hubbard, keep him a little bit fresher. So, I like the signing. It'll be interesting to see how they divide the touches and everything, though.
Yep. I think you said a lot of great stuff right there. I agree. I like the idea now of them always potentially being able to field a talented to potentially upper talented player on offense. I think they bought at any given time, right? Injuries, what have you. I wish you said, I wish I was one of the guys who fell into Rico Dowdle. I think I was still holding on to a little bit of there's no way this guy has what it takes. So I'm going to get Zeke on as many rosters as I can. And I paid the price heavily for that one. So just so the listeners out there have some transparency in who I am and what I bring to the table, there's a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. So that's how I roll around these parts.
Hey, if you don't have spectacularly bad tape, what are you doing? I mean,
that's right. That's how we started. That's how we started this show. And perhaps that's the absolutely best way to end them. So Dan, absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate you coming on. Loved all your picks. Loved all your insight. I'm happy to have you on. Want to give you the floor here to plug anything you have coming up, where the good people can find you, last three of your the CVC on your credit card number, just anything that might be relevant.
Yeah, let me start with my social security number, and we'll move on from there.
Excellent. Yeah. Start with the least important, and then
You can catch me on Stack Hunters with Bradley Stalder. He and I are doing that right now. It's every other week, but as the off season starts revving up a little bit more, it'll turn into an every week show, and that's a lot of fun. We just basically are covering best ball. We'll hit a variety of formats. We'll be talking fast draft. We'll be talking FFPC. We'll probably be talking a little underdog. So whatever your format is, we'll be out there for you. And then Fantasy Empire is a show that we'll do once the drafting season starts rolling around. Chris Vaccaro, Nelson Sousa, Matt Modica, and I. Those are 3 very excellent high-stakes players, and me, who, we get together and we talk about what we're seeing, how we think the season's going to unfold, and, what our draft strategies are and everything. So it's, we say it's a high-stakes show, but I have a secret. Anybody can listen. You can use this information. So, and that's basically what's going on.
that's the way to do it. I like that. It's almost like being able to ask a blackjack dealer for tips while you're playing, right?
Yeah.
Or at least while standing at the table. You don't always have to participate. They'll give you the insight. So check in, give them your support. You might be able to turn it into something fun. All right, Dan, in lieu of my plugs or anything I have coming up, I'm going to not lend a comment that got asked 6 times, and I forgot to answer it. Slashy wants to know, let's pretend that Russ is on the Giants. Who are you taking first in a dynasty startup, BTJ or Malik Neighbors?
Man, you want to go first on this one?
Yep, I'm going to take it, and I'm going to take it strong. I'm going BTJ, and I'm going BTJ by the skin of my skin. Or what? I'm not sure if that's the phrase. Whatever it is, that's what it's going to be. I'm taking him. I just believe in a pairing with Trevor Lawrence for the next several years. That'll bring me a little bit more consistency. I just don't trust what's going on in New York, and that could be rectified quick. But I don't think Russ is another step in a long line of missteps, if that were the case, for me personally.
Yeah, I'm there with you. BTJ was a revelation last year. He was a guy that I was in a little bit on, but I wish I'd been in a lot more on. I went into the Xavier Worthy area of the draft, or in that area of the draft, I guess I should say. I went with Xavier Worthy a lot more often than BTJ. Which at the end of the season wasn't quite so bad, but early on in the season that was not so good. So,
sure.
BTJ, because these New York teams, they just keep shooting themselves in the foot over and over and over again. Why am I expecting any different this year, next year, or any other year? They looked into Neighbors. I hope he survives it.
No, I'm with you. It seems now like for whenever there's 1 or 2 Justin Jeffersons or Jamar Chases, there's 6 or 7 Garrett Wilsons, Malik Neighbors, Chris Olave's. There just seem to be as many opportunities for these teams to screw these situations up as there are for them to put them on pedestals and skylight them to the top. Assuming Marvin Harrison is lower than both of these guys, for me, yes, personally, same for you?
Yes, definitely.
All right, perfect. That's going to be how we get out of here with some Marvin Harrison Jr. slander. As always, guys, that's how we end every show, with a little bit of Cardinals poo-poos. So, Dan, one more time, thank you so much for coming on. Everybody have a great time out there. Love you, miss you. Cheers.